Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, I am Mariana and I interview the brightest minds of physical therapy. So if you want to increase your knowledge, start right now by subscribing to this channel, clicking on the bell so you don't miss anything, give us a thumbs up and share with your friends. Today, our guest is Brent Cunning, and he's going to talk about the 21st century MDT business model. Brent is an advanced practice physical therapist, McKinsey certified, the founder of BCP Diagnostics and DisruptionMSK, where he helps MDT clinicians build sustainable virtual practices and scale MDT. I hope you enjoy the show. Hi Brent, welcome to PT Pro Talk. How are you today?
Hey Mariana, I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well, and I'm glad to be here with you today. We have a very polemic topic, so let's get started. Could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your career, your background, and how did you get to where you are right now?
Yeah, for sure. I'll try and get through this without rambling too much. But I'm in London, Ontario, Canada. That's where I was born and raised. It's funny because you can hear it snowed like crazy here, and all I can hear right now is my neighbor snow blowing his driveway. And I know it's not getting picked up by the microphone, thankfully, but it's really loud out here. But that's anyway. That's where I live. Yeah, like I said, born and raised there. I did my schooling at a university here at what it's called University of Western Ontario. My undergrad degree was in medical cell biology, and then I thought at one point, I changed my mind probably 16 times about what I was going to do. I thought I was going to get into research about stem cells or some type of neurobiology or neurochemistry research. And then I ended up realizing that doing research wasn't something that I was passionate about. I wanted to work with people. So I tried to get into medical school and then got waitlisted at a few different, one medical school, and then applied to a bunch of different ones. I didn't get in, and then decided to go into physical therapy. My dad was a physical therapist in my area. He owned, with a few partners, actually some of his partners you've interviewed on this podcast, Jack Miller and Jim Millard. They were partners with my dad.
That's awesome.
Yes, very
small world.
Yeah, and so they created body mechanics. So they owned, I believe it was 8 or 9 clinics altogether in this area, and it was very forward-thinking. They were very forward-thinking clinicians, and they were using evidence-based practices at a time when that wasn't happening a lot in physiotherapy. So they established a lot of relationships with orthopedic surgeons and physicians, and became quite well known for high-quality care in our area. So I ended up taking going into the family business, I guess. I didn't go into his business necessarily. I started my own business, but I went to physical therapy school in Queen's University, which is in a place called Kingston. It's near Ottawa, the capital of Canada. And so then I graduated in 2015, and then I ended up coming back to London, and I worked in this story could get a little bit long, so you might have to rein me in, but I'll try and shorten it. Basically, I started off my career in 2 different practices, which gave me this really interesting perspective on the musculoskeletal pain rehabilitation industry. The first place that I worked at was I was expected to see upwards to 6 patients an hour. So the way that works is the 3 people would come in at a time, and then they would get shuttled into separate rooms. And you'd have a physiotherapy assistant that would then go into one room and put somebody on a heat pack and a TENS machine, and then leave them for 10 minutes. They would go to the other person, stick a TENS machine with a Russian stim protocol, and then have them using an elastic band and doing some type of exercise that was around the joint that was where the pain was. There wasn't a whole lot of clinical reasoning that went into the diagnostics in the first place, but I would do, the examination and then get them on a treatment plan, which would typically be 6 to 8 weeks, oftentimes longer. And in fact, we were incentivized to keep that longer financially. So, but then the third person would go into a third room, and I would do some type of manual treatment. It would be a mobilization or it would be some type of soft tissue release. And that's how it worked. Then you just cycle them through so everybody gets pretty much that same cookie cutter protocol. And then you've got the next batch of 3 people coming in, and that was the day. So I would see sometimes up to 30, 40 patients a day. So it's
That's insane.
It's crazy. Yeah. That was my first job coming out of school. And then I actually ended up getting another job working part-time at more of a boutique physiotherapy clinic. And it was better in the sense that I could see people one-on-one, but it was very much bring people in, do a manual hands-on technique to every single person. And that had to be kind of the basis behind what we were doing, because we wanted to have this impression that we are the ones that are creating the change, and manual hands-on therapy needed to happen, and that's what people were coming in to pay for. So that's what I was exposed to when I first came into the profession, and ever since then I've been obsessed with this idea of how to change that model. So how do we reverse this? Because in that model where patients are getting, or where providers are being paid per visit, each time a person comes in, there's this perverse underlying incentive to keep the person in pain. It's not that the clinician is doing that. I don't believe that. I mean, there are some clinicians out there that don't have good motives, but I suspect all or most clinicians, their intention is good. They want to get the patient better. But we know from population health data and studies that this incentive structure and system creates people coming back in for care and unnecessary utilization of care for longer than they should. So anyway, I got out of those practices, and basically out of frustration. During that time, though, I serendipitously found MDT. It's funny because the only reason I took the MDT Part A course was because it was free if you hosted it, and I was cheap, and I had to pay my student debt. So, I really wanted to learn. I was obsessed with taking as many courses as I could, and trying to get improve my skills, and knowing that at some point I was going to leave these practices and start my own practice eventually. But I got hooked right away when I got took Part A with Richard Rosedale, who lives really close to me, and he then also was my instructor for Part B and Part C, and then I had Colin Davies for Part D, and it was changed my life. I actually was considering getting out of the profession, because I was going to either go back to medical school or I was going to get into tech. That was my plan, because I was so frustrated that there was this perverse incentive that was actually not in line with my ethical and moral framework when it came to patient care. But this changed everything. I stayed in it and got certified very quickly. Left those practices, started my own home care business where I was just going to people's homes. Because I realized with MDT, it's very minimalist. All I needed was a treatment table, my car to get to people's houses, and I could do the treatment there. There were problems with that model, and for many reasons we can talk about if you want to, it failed. Then I ended up going into a role which was also life-changing for me and career-changing for me. It was within the public sector. So I was operating beforehand in the private sector, but this was an opportunity for me to work as an advanced practice provider, so an advanced practice physical therapist. I don't know if you guys have the same title in the States.
I don't think so. I talked to Jack Miller about that. That was one of the topics of the podcast, about how they do that in Canada. So that's very interesting.
Yeah. So I was in the same role that Jack was in, actually, just in a different location. I think he was in Toronto or Toronto area, and I was in a different region. But it was a very innovative program. We in Canada, we have the opposite problem that you guys have, where for spine pain or spinal conditions, people will wait oftentimes 1.5 to 2 years to sometimes even just get to see a surgeon, and then to actually get the surgery is a longer wait. So we that's a big problem. So and about 92% of the time, the surgeon would end up saying, "Well, you're not a good surgical candidate," and so their hit rate on surgery is 8% or less, and that's there's a big disconnect there, and a lot of people are sitting on that wait list, suffering unnecessarily, and are never going to get surgery. And so so there would needed to be something in between, and so that's where this program came in. They rolled out right across the province, and it was a great opportunity for me because I got to train directly with orthopedic spine surgeons, neurosurgeons, interventional radiologists, anesthesiologists, rheumatologists, and I got to apply MDT in a role where family physicians were from all over the region were sending patients to me as the frontline assessor, and I would use MDT to categorize those people as quickly as I could. And I got quite efficient at the system in figuring out, where does this person fit in terms of subgroups? And I had to do it quickly because I only have about an hour with person. I had some follow-ups with them at 6-week intervals. I could see them again for a set number of visits. But in that first visit, you have to get a lot of information in a short period of time. So I honed in my diagnostic skills and my assessment skills over about 3 years. I was in that role, and learned how to interpret MRIs, CT scans, X-rays for lumbar spine pain only. So this is a low back program, and continued to work with the orthopedic surgeons there. I got to scrub in for surgeries, which was really cool. I like to tell people that I actually got to be somewhat involved in those surgeries where I could. I said one time I actually got to put my finger on somebody's carotid artery, so that was really cool in the surgery operating room. So really neat. It was a unique opportunity, and so anyway, I actually just left that job. So I was there for 3 years. I left in November. And now I'm starting up my own virtual care practice, which is what you see behind me. So this is my office. So I'm now back into the private world.
So that's very interesting, all the journey and how different this last job that you have had from the first one that you're seeing a lot of people. So it's probably way more stimulating, interesting, because you could really use your skills.
Yep.
And make the difference and not be financially incentivized to keep having the patients coming and get paid per visit. And I think that was very interesting what you mentioned, because I just had a similar conversation with Nick and Scott from IMC on a previous episode that I recorded with them. And we were talking about how they are different, like their model is different because of the flat rate per case, so they don't get by visit. So that brings us to our next topic, that what I want to ask you about these models. So I know that now you mentioned that you are working in your virtual clinic. So I know you're also working to help other MDT clinicians to launch their own business and be successful. And we know it's hard to build a business when you see the patient for a few visits, and the better you get, the less visits you're going to see the patient.
Yeah.
So that's the tough part. So in your opinion, what is a business model for MDT clinic owners that can reverse this trend of MDT clinicians getting financially, let's say, penalized as their outcomes and skills improve?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, because that's the problem that I've been, like I said, I'm obsessed with trying to solve that exact problem. It's a huge problem. I mean, I was frustrated. That's one of the reasons why my private practices were not successful and not profitable, because I was being penalized as I got better with MDT and more skilled. And it doesn't apply. I mean, this applies not just to MDT. I'm only speaking about MDT because I'm biased, and that's the system that I use and I understand. And I don't know any of the other systems, but I suspect that it's true across the board with physiotherapists in general, that the more training you get, the better you are, the better educator and coach you are to patients, the more you connect with them, the more you empathize with them, the more you build that therapeutic alliance, and you realize that these people need education to learn how to do this on their own and not rely on us and be dependent on us, the less money you make in the fee-for-service model. It's just the way it works. You don't get the return visits that a lot of clinics are relying on. Now, I know that a lot of clinics and a lot of places do this because in my role as an advanced practice provider, I spoke to people. I saw over 2,500 cases of low back pain in this role over 3 years, and it broke my heart to hear the stories of people going to clinics and getting passive modalities and care that was absolutely not appropriate. They were, some people 20 plus visits going to a particular provider and never doing a repeated movement exam of any kind. I mean, I don't care. Doesn't matter if it's not MDT, just not using movement as a tool is mind blowing that's actually happening out there. And I heard this story over and over and over again of, I would just go and they would lay me down and I would get acupuncture, or they would do this and this, and then they would send me home just passive, and then they would give me some exercises, but nobody checked in on the exercises. Nobody cared if I was doing them. They would give me a list. They would change them up when I came in, maybe get me doing something in the gym, like riding the bike. But you just knew it was like, this is not patient centered. This is clinic centered. And anyway, so all right, so I get that's why over those 3 years, I always maintained on the side my passion to change this model, this fee for service model, and get it out, because it's not helpful. And doesn't reward providers based on outcomes. So how do we do that? Well, I mean, IMC is doing a fantastic job of that. I got connected. I learned about IMC. I'm in no way like associated with them, and my businesses aren't associated with them. But I took the outcomes accountable care training, and it blew me away. It made me significantly better in terms of my clinical outcomes and my ability to get to an answer quicker. So it made me much more efficient as a provider. And I started using their outcomes tracking system, which is incredible. And I participated on their grand rounds. And so they have this incredible quality assurance mechanism that's built in, and they're reaching out to, they're obviously pursuing self-insured employers and creating value-based reimbursement models with them. And they're doing it, at least one part of their approach is case rates, which is a fantastic way to reward somebody based on your outcomes, right? Because the quicker, you're not penalized for getting people better. In fact, you're financially incentivized to get people better quicker and get them out.
Yeah.
What I want to solve is, how do we do that, but from but getting that information directly to the patient? How do we get to the public with this message that there are highly trained clinicians and providers out there that are paying good money? I mean, this is an expensive wall back here. I spent a lot of time and a lot of money on this, trying to get people better faster and get them out. So how do we reward those individuals, and how do we spread the word that those individuals are out there? Because I think there's a huge demand for the type of care that, say, MDT certified clinicians provide, or outcomes accountable care certified clinicians provide, or diplomats provide. And again, I'm biased. There's probably other systems out there that are fantastic and getting fantastic outcomes as well, and they should be compensated appropriately. So I can tell you, if you want me to dive into my business model that I've tested, and I can certainly do that.
I think your ideas are very interesting, and I think that's a very hard problem, and it's really hard to change the system. So I'm interested to learning what your thoughts and how you are structuring your business, and hopefully we can help other providers that want to have a model that works better financially,
Yeah.
and how we can make this known by the clients, the patients, because that's also hard to get this message across and make them understand what's the difference of doing traditional PT and paying cash, paying a little bit more to have a better treatment that's going to be long-term more effective, and it's going to be a shorter treatment. So I think that a lot of factors that they have to change to have like to be able to change this model. So
Yeah, it's there is a lot of things that have to align. Yeah, I agree. But I mean, I've got some preliminary data that the sort of the model, this newer type of model that I'm using is working. I have a group of clinicians, like you mentioned, right now in my program. So it's a new program that I've made, and actually came into existence last year, called DisruptionMSK. And the whole point of it is to get a whole bunch of forward thinking, progressive thinking, and really deep, thinking MDT clinicians together to figure out exactly what you just said. How do we scale this to meet that demand? Like, we are as MDT providers, certified providers that are using the system the way it's supposed to be used, and tracking data and outcomes. We're a minority, so there's a very small supply. There's a huge demand out there. And yeah, how do we get to the demand? So really, it's a distribution problem. That's the issue. So it's getting that message out there. Now, like you said, it's a great. There's many different ways we can do this, and actually, I think technology and the timing and the economy are all kind of converging together to create this opportunity for us to get the word out there really, really quickly and fast and effectively. And that's that it's through social media. I mean, that's where people are consuming their information. That's, unfortunately, the general public does not read this scientific literature and the data. They consume information and get information on social media platforms. It's just the way it is. So you can essentially, that's just this giant word of mouth platform. So I mean, a lot of MDT providers and clinic owners, they rely on word of mouth, which is fine. It's just an unpredictable and slow strategy to grow your business. It takes years for that to work, but it does work. Happy people talk. And when you get people better, they talk to other people, and provide physicians that refer, you send them notes and you get them understanding what you're doing and why you're different. And they start to refer more people, but it's slow. We have this opportunity to leverage these platforms where we can disseminate information across geographic borders very quickly. We have one of the best, I mean, I would say that we're sitting on the best sales pitch for orthopedics and MSK that has ever existed, which is we can find a high percentage of individuals with rapidly reversible pain. We can do it quickly. Oh, and it only takes them 1 to 2 exercises and they get better within days. Oh, and we can do this virtually because all we need is to be able to see you and hear you in order to diagnose you properly and get you empowered to do this on your own. And we can teach you how to use a particular directional preference exercise that then you have in your back pocket as a tool for the rest of your life to prevent recurrence and recover function. I mean, this is incredible. And we all have these incredible stories where we've seen people rapidly improve, and it's almost magic. Like, I feel like when I talk to people about this, I sound like a charlatan. I sound like I'm a crazy person because, you're just like, I had a person that came into my office and ripping leg pain, down to the foot and ankle, and they had it for 6 months. And then we did one simple exercise and they walked out with absolutely no pain at all. And then I only saw them for 2 more visits after that, and they were totally pain-free and their life has changed. If to somebody who's doesn't understand directional preference, that sounds like you're crazy. And so
yeah,
what I'm trying to get
too good to be true.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds too good to be true. So how do we first of all spread the message to a large group of individuals where we're pushing these very emotionally captivating but true stories of people getting rapidly better with 1 to 2 simple movements and other simple strategies, but not sounding like charlatans. That's the challenge. But we can do it. And the way you do it is you basically, the other thing, actually, I'll backtrack a bit. Virtual care is the other technology piece that is the reason why I think we're in a, as MTT providers, we're primed to disrupt this industry, because MDT is tailor made for virtual care. Anyway, but I'm preaching to the choir with you. I know I don't have to explain why that is, but the other thing that's really cool is you have this opportunity to capture derangements and directional preference cases in real time, as long as you get the appropriate consent from the patient to do that. You store it. You're making sure you're not violating any privacy issues in terms of data storage. And then the happy people, instead of relying on them going and talking to a few other people, you say to that happy person, hey, I got a video of this whole thing. Remember how I told you that we're really trying to get people to understand that this type of problem, like I just educated you about, exists. Do you mind helping me? And the way in your video testimonial, by the way, Bob, this could change somebody else's life, just like it changed your life. Do you mind doing that? And the people that I've had where I've asked that, I've been more than happy to say, yeah, you can use this in your marketing, on your website. And I think what we need to do as providers collectively is get a pool or get a repository of all these amazing case studies of people actually getting better. Then what we can do is make sure you're tracking your outcomes. Use a resource like IMC's Joint Strong Data Registry. Use Photo. Use something to capture the data and the outcomes so that you couple that together. So now you've got emotionally captivating stories, which is what pulls people in anyway. That's what you use on your social media pages. That's what you use on the sort of the top of funnel content, because there's all these marketing funnels and sales funnels and website funnels that you hear about in the marketing and sales world. That's top of funnel. People don't know who you are type content because it gets them interested. And but then, you couple that with the actual outcomes, and that's a very strong 1-2 punch. So anyway, that's how you get people to your doors. The model that I'm using is basically cash pay, virtual care practice using MDT, but quality assured MDT in some capacity. I use the IMC system, and I encourage the group members in my program to use that as well, because how else can we make sure that the quality is up to par? That's the challenge, right? You got to make sure that people are following some rules and some guidelines. I tell the clinicians in my group, I believe firmly in autonomy and freedom, and in this sort of this bottom up grassroots movements of clinicians and clinic owners all across the world are going to create this change. And they'll have the autonomy and freedom of running their own practice the way they want to do it. But you've got to have some ground rules. It can't be total anarchy. There has to be rules to follow on the road. Red means stop, green means go, drive on the right side of the road so we don't have accidents, that kind of stuff. That's the outcomes accountability piece. We got to make sure we are providing value to the patients. And the other piece to that is the cash pay piece. This provides an opportunity to get out of the fee-for-service business altogether. You can just get out. First of all, the cash pay is incredibly appealing because you can eliminate about 80% of your headaches as a clinic owner because you're just cutting out insurance altogether. And that's incredibly liberating. Again, I talk about freedom and autonomy. That's the ultimate freedom and autonomy. Getting rid of that middleman is is amazing. It's like a weight off your shoulders. And then the transaction now only occurs between the patient and the provider. In my opinion, that's the way it should be. I'm not sure why insurance companies are still involved in MSK pain in the first. Now, I understand why they got into it in the first place, because back in the day when insurance came into the picture, care for MSK was quite expensive, and they were doing a lot of surgeries and a lot of expensive imaging and stuff. But now it's really cheap, and I don't think insurance has a place anymore. Just like insurance, just like your home insurance doesn't cover your groceries, just like your auto insurance doesn't cover your gasoline. I don't think health insurance should be covering the majority of musculoskeletal care, barring the really catastrophic stuff. Of course, you need. That's why insurance is good. But anyway, so
it's expensive anyway, the insurance.
Well, exactly, and it stifles the innovation that's necessary to then get these types of models out there, like, and scale them quickly. That's a blanket statement. I shouldn't say that completely, because IMC is working with insurance providers, and they are coming up with some innovative value-based models. So it's not I'm not labeling every single insurance company and saying, oh, they're all bad and evil. I'm just saying that from a big picture standpoint, insurance is part of the problem and is kind of keeping the healthcare system in a state of chaos and disorder, and preventing costs from getting driven down because of competition, which we know competition drives innovation. So anyway, what we can choose to do now is just sidestep that, charge the patient directly. And instead of paying fee for service, what I'm doing right now in my own clinical practice is I'm charging a block fee up front, a case rate. And this, and it's interesting, but there's an important piece to this that you've got to understand. That's really challenging at first to wrap your head around, but once you get it, you see how it works. And once you start testing it, you see how it works. And that's that in this model, I'll give you the framework. You charge a block fee up front. You see the patient for 6 weeks for a program of care. In that 6 weeks, you can see that patient for unlimited visits. And it's not bound by time. I'll see somebody for 15 minutes. I'll see them for 30. I'll see them for 60. I'll see them for 2 hours if they need to. That's the beauty of that model. You can just open up your calendar a heck of a lot more to then meet that person where they're at, and tailor the treatment to their specific needs. Then after that, I'll follow up with them once a month, so that I can actually track their outcomes every month for up to a year. Because I want to know if my treatment, not only am I getting that person better in that 6 weeks, but am I really keeping that person, am I doing a really good job with my education? I think it was McKenzie that said, I might be misquoting him here, but I think it was McKenzie that said, don't celebrate until you've kept your patient out of the clinic for a whole year. And it was either McKenzie or somebody, McKenzie trained that I heard that on a podcast one time. And I was like, that's totally true. Don't celebrate until 1 year out. You know that patient is still self-managing. So anyway, so I track my outcomes on that patient for a whole year. The thing that you got to understand, though, is it's tough for people to get around this. So you've got a few barriers here. One is people don't know why you're different as an MDT provider, so they don't really know that the amount you're charging them up front is worth the dollar value. They also are skeptical that it can work on virtual. How are you going to do physical therapy if you're not physically with me? That's a big objection that I hear all the time.
I'm so tired of this question.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Yes.
You're getting it too, right? Like, we have to handle that objection. Yeah. And there's another point that I was trying to make, but I forgot. But anyway, so yeah, you've got these barriers. And what you need to do here, though, is you got to spend a lot of time giving a lot of our secret sauce, like our knowledge of directional preference, this algorithm that we all have in our heads. We should actually got to give that away up front. So we've got to. I think what's happened in the past is we've been hiding behind a paywall for a long time. That's kind of the old clinic model where it's just like, come in and see me, but pay me first, and then I'll give you the knowledge. Consumer behavior. This is the other question that you're going to ask me, but consumer behavior.
Yes.
I'm jumping ahead. The consumer behavior has changed so much now that people are expecting things for free a hell of a lot more than they used to. And I suspect that that's because we've been burned so badly by, scammers and online charlatans that are selling things that don't provide value, but are using manipulative, coercive tactics through sales and marketing strategies, digital marketing, that people are just sick of it. And they're not falling for it anymore. Like the used car salesman, sorry for anybody who knows used car salesman, but like the used car salesman tactics just don't work anymore on people. You've got to provide actual tangible value upfront or free before people know, like, and trust you nowadays. That's just the change. That's the trend in consumer behavior. Think about it. Like any software that you subscribe to these days has a free trial for 2 months, or they give away the entire platform for free and then they charge you for an upgraded version. I use a task management platform called Asana, and it's free, and I've been using it for the last 3 years to essentially run my entire life. There's incredible value. They've given me incredible value up front, and I trust them. At some point, if my business grows big enough, hopefully, I will have there'll be no hesitation for me to purchase that upgraded version because they've established so much trust. I think so. I'm spending a lot of time giving away as much value up front as possible. And there's many ways I do that, but I won't go into the details of it. But social media is a fantastic way to do that. You get to give people all this free content, all this good stuff, so they start to know, like, and trust you before they come to your door. And there's a hidden benefit to that is they're primed to be a good, I don't want to say a good patient, but I don't know, an educated, more likely to comply or buy in to what it is that you can offer, because you've educated them up front. Now there will be people that will not like this message, and they, but the question is, do you really want to see those people in the first place? Because there's some people that just aren't ready to do movement.
Yeah. And it's not for everybody.
Exactly.
Do virtual.
Or it's not for everybody. Yeah, it's not for everybody. Yeah, you're right. The virtual piece is certainly, it's not for everybody. There are people that just technologically they can't do it. But
and the exercise too.
Yeah, exactly. Like there are people that are just not ready. They're not in that stage of behavior change. They're not even in the pre-contemplative stage yet. They're just, they're certainly not in the action stage. And so, do you want to see those people? It's very hard to take somebody through those stages of change to get them to the action stage when you're treating somebody, when you're in a therapeutic environment with somebody in the fee-for-service model, because they're paying, because each time they come in, they're kind of like, well, they're either like, well, when is this guy going to give me the spa treatment? Because I just want to feel good. Or they're thinking, nah, this isn't moving fast enough because I got to pay this person every visit. But the cool thing is we can actually use these social media platforms to get people to move through those stages of change. And people are going to move at different rates. So your outreach strategy on social media and these marketing strategies, you may catch somebody viewing your content but they may not turn into a patient until 6 months or maybe 12 months down the road, after they've then finally got out of that pre-contemplative stage into the contemplative. Now they're ready for action. Now they're ready for change. That's when they buy in, right?
So first of all, how do you get these patients to understand that and then be willing to pay? Because I already think that paying cash per visit is hard.
Yeah.
But then if you have like as you said, like a block fee that's probably higher, I would think that's even harder to get the buy-in of the patient. So you probably have to, gonna take longer. You have to educate them more and give them more value to be able to change the model and make them understand. So how do you do that, and how is the resistance of the current clients that you're seeing in this model?
Yeah, that's a great question. I I don't think so. Think what you have to do is you have to target the right people. That's the thing, right? So if you go after individuals who are already they're already very much in the insurance system, and they're not going to they're just not going to give you a credit card. They don't want to. They'd rather use their insurance card. That's extremely labor intensive to try and convince them and change their mind. Just go after the low hanging fruit. That's the way to go. So there's individuals out there, and you can find them on LinkedIn. You can find them on Facebook. You can find them in all these different groups and social media places where, for example, there's healthcare spending accounts, and you can figure out which employers are giving their employees healthcare spending accounts. They are not limited by the fee-for-service model. The insurance there's no insurance structure there to then tell them that this is the reasonable and customary fee. This is what we're going to charge, or this is what we're going to reimburse. They actually have, in some cases, $2,000, $3,000 to spend on whatever they want, whatever they think is worth their investment in their own wellness. And those individuals are much more likely to spend an upfront or pay for an upfront block fee or case rate, especially if you educate them beforehand on the system and why virtual works. The other thing is, look for individuals who are already using their credit card for health and wellness. So you can actually target individuals who are already going to paying for gyms. They're paying for more holistic type of interventions. They're paying for massages. Like, these people value their own health, and they're already willing to pay for that. So these individuals exist out there. It's just, that's what I was saying. It's a distribution problem. We've got to distribute to the right individuals.
You have to find them.
You got to find them. Yeah, that's right. And the other thing you can do is I love telling people about this, the direct primary care movement. I think we talked, I told you about that.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is such a cool model. I love it. It's for anybody who doesn't know, it's basically they're calling it the Netflix of family physician or primary care, because these family physicians have all decided they're going to completely sidestep the insurance companies, just like me and just like the clinicians in my group. And they're charging their patients $70 on average per month subscription fee for unlimited primary care services. It's an incredible model. They get about 500 to 600 patients on their panel, and it ends up being quite financially feasible. They make probably, I actually don't know the numbers on this, but they probably make about the average that other physicians make in the insurance system. The thing is, though, they have to be very frugal. They have to understand the business side of things quite a bit, because they have to build a very minimalist, low expense practice, so they keep the expenses low, and the profit margins are such that it's a sustainable practice. But the appeal is incredible, because just like us, they're trying to eliminate the 80%, 90% of their headaches, which is because of the insurance system. And they're realizing they're freeing up their time. They're able to spend much more one-on-one time with patients. I was watching a podcast of one direct primary care doctor saying that when a patient's visit is scheduled for 8:00, the doctor miraculously actually shows up at 8:00. It's incredible. They're not an hour or 2 hours late for the visit and then rushing, 10 trying to get everything done in 10 minutes and then handing them a prescription and saying, now go get your medication and, come back when you need. It's much more like old school medicine. Spend the time with the patient, figure out what the problem is, spend a lot of time on prevention. So wellness and keeping them out of the clinic, because it's the same idea, right? They are incentivized to keep them out and self-managing. And they leverage virtual technology because it's much more cost efficient. So they see people through virtual care, they text, they email, they're active on social media. So if you're a physiotherapist and you're trying to figure out, well, how do I connect to doctors? Go on social media and look for direct primary care providers. Because I went on Facebook and I messaged one doctor, just a Facebook message, and I was totally expecting to wait like a week or 2 weeks later, and then maybe I get a response. The doctor messaged. This was on a Sunday, so the doctor messaged me back immediately, and then I said, "Oh, well, are you free for a chat?" And then they said, "Yeah, are you free in 10 minutes?" Yeah, okay, for sure.
Oh, wow.
So I got on the phone and talked with the doctor for 2 hours. Told him about MDT. Told him about how it works virtually, and incredibly receptive, and got it because I was in this. Because I said, look, I'm on the same team. We're just as frustrated as you guys with this insurance model, and so we got along quite well, I guess.
I had some similar experience. One, you told me about them, and then I started looking them up and contacting some in my area, and they were for the most part receptive. Some of them still very skeptical about virtual physical therapy because they don't understand MDT.
Yep.
And that just remind me, I have one podcast scheduled with Rome next week, so that's gonna be a great conversation about primary care physicians and how to educate them regarding to MDT. So that's going to be good. But I think that they are different. They are open and more receptive because of the model too. So I had similar experience.
Yep.
When you mentioned the outcome track, that's something that I'm always curious about, because I think it's really hard when you are by yourself. Because I spend a lot of time thinking how I'm going to track this. I didn't know about the IMC outcomes until you told me about that. And I was looking at photo and all of these systems. So I think it's hard to find also a good solution, because you get your forms and you get some metrics, but it's really hard to create like a good system of tracking. So like for the clinicians that are by themselves, do you recommend going to this to IMC with this outcome? Do you have any other recommendations on how to track? Is that a simple way, or any insights about that?
Yeah, I think, well, I can only speak to my own experience. I have not used, actually, I couldn't use photo even if I wanted to. They pulled out of Canada. I think it was 2 years ago. Actually, they, and they kind of handcuffed a few MDT clinic owners that were using and relying on photo to capture their data for years. And they actually just pulled their servers out of Canada. So you can no longer use them. I never got an opportunity to use photo. I've heard fantastic things about them. So, I mean, there's that. I've only ever used IMC's Joint Strong data registry, and I love it. I mean, it's very simple. It's MDT specific, so it doesn't get much better than that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it ties into their grand rounds process, where I get to every single week, I get my patients will get kind of picked up and flagged by their algorithm that are not meeting their expected benchmark outcomes. So then I'll have to present the case, and it's such a cool system. It's absolutely genius. I'm just blown away by the whole thing because it reduces my diagnostic and treatment error on an individual level. every week with every one of my patients. It's amazing. And then it's all the data is being pooled together, and then they are collectively creating this feedback loop system whereby their training actually can be improved and changed based on the data that comes in from the whole group. So it's such an incredible system. But I love the grand rounds. It's actually a lot of fun because it's very friendly environment. The grand rounds tutors are, I come away with a pearl of wisdom almost every single week. So my clinical skills have just taken off ever since I started doing those grand rounds. So that's what I'm biased, but I would recommend that for data tracking. It's a very simple tool. The other thing that you could do, there's CRMs. So that's a customer relationship management tool. CRMs are kind of like what large organizations would use for their sales and marketing departments to track all of their leads, like their their outreach strategies. So it's a marketing tool. But these over the years have become much more affordable. And there are ones out there that are very cheap. There's actually ones out there that are free. HubSpot is one of them. But I have a paid subscription to a CRM. And in this CRM, these tools have become so powerful. It actually has its own form building template within the CRM. And I have my scheduling in that. I have patient charting in that. I have my calendar is there. It's pretty much got every tool that I need as a business owner all in one place. And it connects with Zoom, and I can use Zoom for my virtual care. It's got a learning management platform, so I can actually put videos of myself doing exercises to show my patients and put that behind a platform, a membership platform, where then they can go, and if they're confused about what exercise to do or the form, I can just point them to that rather than looking for a YouTube video or, doing Hep2Go or whatever exercise software.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's got all these different tools on here, and basically, what was the question? Because now I'm digressing so much and I forgot.
I was just about the outcome, and then you went to the CRM. But that's a good thing because I want to ask you. So is this CRM you developing or is something that you're using?
So
from someone else that you buy.
Yeah, I'll just tie the knot there on that last the thread there that I was pulling. The outcomes, the form builder is the key piece there for the outcomes. So you can actually create forms, link it to your schedule, and then when you remind people about appointments, you can then track their outcomes that way. So that's why.
Okay.
So the CRM works nicely as a patient management system as well, as long as you can do charting within it. Sometimes the CRM, depending on which one you get, you have to have a separate patient management system. So that's challenging because then you have to have dual entry where you're like, you send out the appointments, but then you have to separately send out, reminders about outcomes.
Emails to others.
Yeah. So that's a bit challenging for clinic owners. But if you get one that has it all in one, like this one, which to answer your question, it's a software that exists out there. It's called Go High Level. If anybody wants to check it out, it's pretty incredible. You can white label that system, so you can kind of make it your own. You can put your own branding on it, and that's what I use, and that's what I teach my clinicians in my group how to use that, and it's very, very effective.
Okay, awesome information. And just to finalize our conversation here, the last topic before the final question. I know you create like a funnel, a structure to get leads, right? That they go inside the CRM system and you try to make things automatic, right?
Yeah.
You've been working. I think we talked about that before. Is that something that you're still working? Do you want to just mention really quick to the clinicians if they have any interest in learning, they don't have a system in place, they want to learn more about it? Do you want to kind of just walk through really quick what is how is the structure of what you use?
Yeah, sure. All right. Real quick, you said though. So, okay. How do I do that?
Real quick,
All right. How do I do that? Okay.
summarize.
I'm going to summarize this very quickly. Okay. Yeah, basically the CRM has what's called a funnel builder. And so that's like, if people don't know what a funnel is, you have your standard websites, which is just like a choose your own adventure, and people can go anywhere. With a funnel site, you can convert them into a paying patient or paying customer a lot more efficiently because you're walking them down sort of a breadcrumb pathway where you're structuring the wording just right to keep it readable. You want the idea behind a funnel page is that you want them to be able, you're giving them permission to read the next line. And then they keep on reading, and you're giving a lot of high value free information away to then get them to understand the process that you're doing. So, or the system that you're using and providing them value. So this tool, the CRM, has a website builder in it. It's got a funnel builder in it. Then it has automations that are tied to those funnels. So you basically, what you can do is you can create a really high value front end offer where you, for example, I created my own directional preference mini course, and it's an 8-video course that I give away to people for free. And I want them to start understanding MDT, and I want them to start treating their own problem using simple retraction extension as a screening tool, understanding baseline setting, understanding, cause and effect analysis, blah, blah, blah. And then using lumbar extensions. And I want them to understand the discovery of directional preference and extremity pain of spinal source. So I give that away in exchange for them to give me their email, phone number, and name. Then I can use the automations in the CRM to send out non-annoying, non-salesy educational content to those patients so that you stay in front of them in a world where people's attention spans are 5 seconds long. So that's just the way you got to do it these days, to stay in front of people, keep them engaged. Because if you think about it, they're getting hit with all this other information, trying to snatch at their attention from corporations, companies, organizations, clinics that are using these exact same strategies. So you got to play the game, unfortunately. And it's challenging for us because we're scientists by nature. We're skeptical thinkers by nature. We want to be authentic. We want to be real and not use smoke and mirrors tactics and not be coercive and manipulative. So it's challenging. But I think I'm doing with this CRM and with my group is we're finding the right way to do this. We're trying to figure out, how do we do this where we are staying true to the principles of MDT? We are giving accurate education, accurate information, but also layering in those captivating emotional stories to then drive them down the funnel, get them in to the CRM, keep outreaching to them. Eventually, they become paid customers.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea, and it's great that you're building this because we have actually a lot of PT coaches. We already talked about that in the podcast as well, that they are teaching the structure, the system, but as you said, I feel it's just very robotic and it's not really delivering value. It's not like, I don't know how to explain, but it's not like you said, it's not the education that is really valuable and the way that we work as MDT clinicians. So I feel like what you're saying, it makes way more sense, and you don't feel like you are just saying anything for the sake of saying to get someone's attention and try to get them to buy something. You are really, because as you said, we have to play the game, but play the game in a way that you're actually is for the benefit of the patient. We just want to give them information and help them to make a good decision. So
yeah.
I think it's awesome that you're building that.
Yeah, well, I think that's actually I think that's an untapped area of this market. Almost everyone and their grandma is creating a clinic accelerator program right now because it's so financially lucrative to do that. Like, clinic owners have learned how to run these funnel systems. They've learned that you could easily just white label these CRM systems and then charge providers a subscription fee for it and a high ticket fee for a coaching program. which the majority of them, and trust me, I mean, I've clicked on every single ad that comes up for these accelerator programs just to hack into their funnels and see what they're doing. None of them, as far as I have seen, have any interest in tracking patient health outcomes, tying an accountability piece to their clinical accelerator program. They're basically just repackaging the same old, outdated, unscientific model of MSK care in a new shiny object, and then using these tools to spread it like wildfire. And so that's another motivation for me, is that I reluctantly got into this world of digital marketing. I'm introverted by nature. I don't like being in the spotlight. I did, I got in because I just saw that this was happening, and I'm kind of worried. I'm worried because if all of these other clinics and organizations are using these tools to spread this information, that's a lot of misinformation out there. And if a lot of people are consuming their information from these platforms, is MDT might be in a bit of trouble. If we're trying to rely on the slow turning wheels of scientific literature, and then using that to try and bolster the system and say, well, hey, look at us. We're science-based, we're evidence-based, we're doing all this stuff, but we're getting drowned by this misinformation that is just getting out there. So, that's another motivation for me to build this. And I think we're doing it the right way. And if anybody's listening out there that is interested in joining up with, I almost want to call this a clinic decelerator instead of an accelerator, because it's so much the opposite of all these, clinic marketing accelerator programs, because a lot of them are focused. A big part of their program is teaching clinicians how to keep people coming back. So there's these re-engagement campaigns that they'll send out, and they track metrics like lifetime value, meaning how do we get this person as a lifer? And so I want to go, no, let's slam the brakes on that. Let's decelerate, and let's focus on high quality care, getting people better, getting these real testimonials out there, tracking our outcomes, and staying accountable as a group. I think that's how you create, you kind of push this rising tide up. And man, I'm hoping that, in a year, couple years, 5 years, we're riding this wave that crests, because people are now the system is changing. Like that's where I hope we are going. Is that going to happen? I don't know. No one can predict the future, but it seems to be trending in that direction. And I want to be primed for that. And I want to have a bunch of clinicians and clinic owners and MDT providers also riding that exact same wave when it does crest, if it does crest, and when that is.
Yeah, we got to adapt on the trends and see how things are going. And you got to play the game to be there, but play on the right way, right? So that's what we expect.
Well, I tell my clinicians in the group, like, we're kind of playing our own game, really. Like we're playing we're more on the sidelines watching the game and then learning from it, and then kind of creating our own game, which is, we're having fun. We're not taking ourselves too seriously, but it's kind of cool because we meet every 3 days a week. So we have online coaching calls. We're all over. We got clinicians in Virginia, New York State, Ontario, looking to expand all across North America. But it's actually fun because we're all clinic owners. We're all like-minded, and we're coming together. It's this nice network. It keeps us connected. A lot of people, MDT providers, feel isolated from the rest of the community. So it gives us a chance to all kind of get together and joke around, lighthearted. But we get to on point. We have a purpose. The overall arching big high level mission for the group is to get a repeated movement exam on the front end of every orthopedic assessment across disciplines. So that's a high, hard goal. Some people would call it an impossible goal. But we in the group, we phrase it as a small I impossible goal, meaning it's not actually impossible. People think it's impossible because it's never been done before. But Another quote that we use is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So if we're going to make this happen, it's going to be because we all have gotten together in maybe it's this group, maybe it's this format, but we're going to have to collectively get together and make this happen as a group. It's not going to be one person or one organization or one institution. It's going to be a collective effort.
Yeah, absolutely. Brent, let's transition to our final question. So what is your favorite resource of information? Any books, specific papers, studies you like in particular?
Yeah, I'm obsessed with I read a ton of books. I read this one book called Anti-Fragility, and I love it. It's by an author's name is Nazim Taleb, Taleb. He's got 5 books in this book series called The Inserto, and it's awesome. Another book is called Skin in the Game. The whole premise behind the books is that he's a mathematician, actually. He's a trader. It's like a stock market trader, but he got into mathematics and he really started understanding probabilities and really, high level math and complex stuff. And he kind of outlines a mathematical formula and logic for why it's better to consume books that are older and information that are older versus newer. And so I love this and the theory is that the evidence, he lays out the evidence that the longer something has been around for, the longer it's likely to continue to be around for. So there's wisdom in these like old books, like from hundreds, thousands of years ago. And I'm like starting to dive into that stuff now, just because I read this series of books. So I'm reading like some old like philosophy, like Marcus Aurelius, meditations. There's a lot of pearls of wisdom in there. I'm going to dive into some other old texts like the Tao and some other stuff. So that's where I'm getting a lot of my information from now. I'm not reading. I haven't been reading any like scientific literature or anything recent. I've just been like diving into these old books.
That's awesome. Personal development too. It's good.
Yeah, like it's old. There's a reason, like these old things like meditation and breathing, that's been around for a long, long time.
Yeah.
There's a reason why.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would be the best advice you give to the clinicians that are starting their careers?
There's advice that I got that I really did not like. And so, anyway, it's the advice I got a lot, was fake it till you make it. After I got out of school, I couldn't believe how much I heard that phrase. I'm not sure if you heard that, but a lot of people would say that because, the idea is that, well, yeah, you have to kind of pretend and because you don't really know a whole lot when you come out of school and when you're just starting out. But if I could go back, I would take that advice and I'd crumple it up and throw it in the garbage and say, be authentic and be real, and don't be afraid to say, I don't know. Because knowing what I know now and having actually connected and empathized and built therapeutic alliances with patients, that goes so far, way further than any mechanical evaluation or anything that you could do, in my opinion. It goes way further than that. And people, from my experience, they value someone being genuine and real and authentic, and they like that. And I think people we're in a world where it's easy to wear masks and hats and fake and have this persona. And when someone can just break down all those walls and just be a real person, I think it's very powerful for connecting with somebody and building a therapeutic alliance. So don't lie to your patients and pretend like you don't know, or pretend like you know something that you don't. Just be real, just be authentic and be honest.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And what personal qualities or abilities that are important to become a successful physical therapist?
Oh man. Well, there's a couple definitions in there that are hard, like what is successful? what is a physiotherapist?
Yeah.
It's a little challenging to pin that one down, but like all I can say is what I think was worked for me, I guess. But it ties into with that the answer to the last question, which was one of the best attributes is be authentic, right? So like that's a value that I hold very closely. It's one of my top values. I have kind of I can say the other things that I value and my own personal attributes that I think have helped me become a better clinician, and that's authenticity is pretty high up there. Empathy is high up there. Valuing empowerment, so empowering other people rather than to do that. You kind of have to identify your own blind spots as much as you can, and kind of like not get caught up in your own bullshit. So because we have heuristics and mental shortcuts that we make. We're human beings. We are emotionally driven creatures, and there's a lot of logical shortcuts that we take, and we got to make sure that we're identifying those cognitive biases as much as possible, and not thinking that we are like the be all end all. I struggle with getting across that, like, I'm very passionate about MDT, but I'm always trying to make sure that I'm being humble. I'm trying to be humble, like I'm not saying that this is the be all end all, because I know there's many different roads that could lead to Rome. And so I think that's a big quality. And I've talked to a lot of the clinicians in the McKenzie Institute, and they say that McKenzie was very humble. That was one of his biggest strengths. And so I try to take a page from his book on that. Grit is also another attribute. If you can work on grit is the combination of passion and perseverance. So if you can combine those two, that there's ways you can do that. That's actually a psychological phenomenon that's been well studied, and there are ways to like train up grit. And so I would say that's hard work and perseverance towards a particular goal. Those are the attributes that I rely on.
Yeah, I think I agree with the being humble. I think it's very important because you also stay open to learn from others, to listen to others, to listen to your patients, and not just think that you know everything. So I think that's very important.
And empathize, and that's a key component of empathy. I mean, you've got to listen. You have to listen to the person and try to connect with them on an emotional level. And that requires you to kind of like, down regulate the ego and, get into that other person's shoes and empathize with them. So yeah, that's huge. That's a whole other podcast, Mariana. We'll have to do another.
We can keep going. I don't know if our listeners are tired of us talking here.
I don't think anybody's actually listening at this point. It's just me and you.
Who knows? Let's see. You're gonna find out later.
We'll see.
So if people want to learn more about you, your work, how they can find you?
You can go to my website is up and running. I just finished it finally. DisruptionMSK.com. So go there. You can kind of check out what we're doing with this group, DisruptionMSK. Group of MDT clinicians all over North America. I don't see why we can't expand to other countries as well, because the consistent thing there is that people can pay with a credit card no matter where you are, and so this cash pay virtual model should be scalable. But anyway, that's how you find me, and then you can find me on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm decently active on that, and you can just private message me, and I'm more than happy. As you can tell, I like to talk. So and I'm willing to just get on the phone and get on Zoom and chat with anybody and talk about this. So
awesome. So yeah, I'm going to put all these links and your contacts on the show notes if anyone wants to check it out. And Brent, I appreciate so much you taking the time to share all your passion. You can tell that you're very passionate about what you're doing and being curious and to try to change something that you see and you don't agree with. And I think that's something that I would think that many MDT clinicians are this way just because we are all trying to find a better way of delivering health care and provide a better care to the patient. So I think what you're building is awesome, and I hope we can all grow together as a profession.
Yeah, I actually will add to that. I know that MDT clinicians are like this because I've done about 50 interviews now with
Oh
MDT
yeah,
clinicians all over. That's how we met first. Was I just
yeah, yes,
cold outreach to
yes.
you just to figure out what are the consistent frustrations across the MDT providers, and that's what led me to sort of create this program, because there's a collective frustration among MDT providers for the most part.
Hopefully we can change that.
Yeah.
And you're starting the process. So yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here and all the work you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. Also, what you're doing is very courageous, because I remember you were saying that like it was you quite outside of your comfort zone when you first started this podcast. So like what you've
Yeah,
done is incredible.
absolutely.
I mean, good for you. And you've had some heavy hitters on this podcast too. Not including myself.
Yeah, so
It's pretty
no,
cool.
but yeah, that's the thing. Just get out of comfort zone and trying to do something different. So
Yeah.
I think that's what drives growth, right? So that's what we have to do.
Yep.
Thank you again.
No problem. Thanks for inspiring everybody out there, and keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a good job. Thanks for this.